Alright guys, as always, this video is going to be brought to you by the people on Patreon. Want to give them a massive thank you. They are the ones who support the show. They're the ones who run the show. And Uncle Piff here has the year 3 running backs and wide receivers value and impact question for these videos. And I'm going to break these into 2 separate videos. And I know that both of them are going to have a lot of data points, a lot that go into them. So they're actually going to be longer videos and I cannot do them together. But guys, if you have not already, make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you consistently watch the videos. I looked at the YouTube algorithm and something crazy showed up that we actually have 55% of our viewers not subscribed to the channel. I don't understand how this is the case, but guys, it's completely free. Just go down there, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, let's get into the video.
That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, before this video, I am going to ask, please guys, drop a like on it. It took me a ton of time to get all the data points out there for this video and to try to put it together. And we are going to cover the year 3 running back position. We are going to go from the guys who were selected in order of the NFL draft. So of course, we are starting it off with Saquon Barkley, who was selected with the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft, only behind Baker Mayfield. Now, if you don't know the controversy behind this pick, a lot of dynasty analysts, a lot of fantasy analysts wanted the team to go with Sam Darnold just because the quarterback position is worth so much more at the NFL level compared to the running back position. Yet Saquon Barkley has proved to be one of the best running backs in the NFL level, if not the best. Personally, I think he may be a better runner of the football than Christian McCaffrey, even though he may not be a better receiver. But nonetheless, Saquon Barkley is 23 years old. He went into the NFL Combine at 6 foot, 233 pounds. This gave him about an 80th percentile BMI. Now, this is significant because we see right away that Saquon Barkley has the size to be a 3-down running back at the NFL level. He has the size to carry a full workload. And what's most impressive about this Saquon Barkley profile is his 99th percentile SPARQ score. If you look across all his workout metrics, they're pretty much 99th percentile across the board. I mean, we've seen this guy, we've seen pictures. He does not look human. I don't know how Saquon Barkley got to be the way he is. I'd imagine a lot of chicken, imagine a lot of rice, a lot of broccoli, and a lot of training. But Saquon Barkley is a beast of a man and a great NFL running back. Now let's cover what he's done in his career up to date. In 2018, he averaged 16.3 carries per game, 7.6 targets per game. And this is how I'm going to break down the running backs. I'm going to look and see how many carries they're getting, how many targets they're getting, and what they are doing with those touches. I'm not going to cover touchdowns just because personally I believe that touchdowns are very volatile. If you look at the math year to year, they're so hard to predict. I think that if we look at a small sample size like 2 years and try to focus in on touchdowns, we're not really going to get too much from it. It's going to be a lot better to kind of see how much volume these running backs are getting both in carries and targets, and that's going to be a lot more predictable year to year, especially with their efficiency carrying over. But his rookie season, 2018, he averaged 16.3 carries per game, 7.6 targets, 81.7 rushing yards, and 45 receiving yards. Now, obviously, the most impressive thing about these stats are his receiving yards. We see right away that not only is Saquon Barkley a massive running back, a massive man, but he can catch the ball and he can do great things when he does catch the ball. So it shows that he's automatically one of the most dynamic running backs at the NFL level, especially with that athleticism. But in 2019, we come in, and before the season, Saquon Barkley was the unanimous 1st overall pick in dynasty startup drafts for great reason. I mean, we see him at an extremely young age with the entire profile come in and completely smash his rookie season. He won people dynasty leagues. He only is 1 year into the NFL, so of course he's going to be the #1 ranked player in dynasty, and he averages 16.7 carries, 5.6 targets, 77 rushing yards, and 33 receiving yards. Now, I know these numbers took a dip from 2018 to 2019, and guys, I'm going to explain this way real easily. Saquon Barkley suffered a high ankle sprain in 2019. And if you don't know about high ankle sprains, pretty much you get one, you're going to be affected the rest of the year. So Saquon Barkley was playing with a nagging injury throughout his entire 2019 campaign after his injury. and we cannot really blame him with this. I believe that he is still most likely the best running back in the NFL, and I'm going on record as saying that. And in 2020, I'm actually all in on Saquon Barkley. He has the best quarterback he's ever seen in his entire career. I know he had Eli Manning, and Eli Manning is a future Hall of Famer to many people, but we have to realize that he was at the very end of his career. Eli was washed, and now he has Daniel Jones, who's not only a great quarterback compared to a washed Eli Manning, but he has the ability to do things with his legs, and this is going to really allow Saquon Barkley to take advantages of defenses because they are not going to be able to crash the linebacker in on Saquon every rush because they are going to have to be worried about Daniel Jones. And also, what we see with this Saquon Barkley situation in 2020 is they actually go out and significantly invest in the offensive line. To many people, the New York Giants had one of the best drafts in 2020, and this is something to be excited about. Saquon Barkley, he was the 101 last offseason. In my opinion, I think he has an argument to be made to be the 101 this offseason, even though I know Christian McCaffrey is going to be taken at that selection every single draft. But now let's go to our second running back off the board. And this is a running back that I was actually extremely excited about coming into the NFL. He has not panned out to this point. It's hard to see him panning out in the future, but let's get into it. And this is Rashad Penny. Now, Rashad Penny was selected with the 27th overall pick in 2018. He is currently 24 years old, and coming into the NFL, he was 5'11", 220 pounds. This gives him a 60th percentile BMI score, and he checks the box that he's big enough to handle a full workload. Yes, he's not a monster like Saquon Barkley, but we can't expect every running back to be that. We just want to see them have a minimum threshold when it comes to size, to see them being able to handle 3 downs. And he actually tested very well at the NFL Combine. He was not able to participate in every workout metric, but just alone with his 40, we see that he has a size-adjusted speed score in the 92nd percentile. So this is something that I love to see from running backs, and it really shows their size-adjusted athleticism, which is so important for the position. But his rookie season, he really flops. I mean, we read all training camp. We read throughout the entire preseason, hey, this is a team that likes Chris Carson. They're going to utilize Chris Carson. Rashad Penny's the backup running back. And I was sitting with Rashad Penny after drafting him in a ton of rookie drafts and laughing at people who believed it. I went, oh my God, you really believe 7th round running back Chris Carson, who is not special at all, is going to take the job from their 1st round running back Rashad Penny? That's not going to happen. You're a fool. And turns out, I was the idiot. I was the one who completely misread the situation, as in 2018, Rashad Penny averages about 6.5 carries a game, a little less than 1 target a game, 33 rushing yards, and 6 receiving yards. So Rashad Penny is just completely a part-time player. He does have some impressive runs. He does have some highlight plays, but he's not getting the workload on a run-heavy team. Now in 2019, he's going into the season, and I'm doubling down on Rashad Penny. If you were listening to the channel last offseason, I'm telling people, hey, go out there, buy low on Rashad Penny. I believe in him. I believe in the talent. I think he's going to win the job, and that's not what happened. Rashad Penny did deal with injuries in 2019, but he only averaged 7.2 carries, 1.2 targets, 41 rushing yards, and a little less than 10 receiving yards. So Rashad Penny has been a major disappointment up until this part of his career, and I was a little bit excited about him for 2020 until they drafted DJ Dallas and signed Carlos Hyde, and reports are saying that Rashad Penny could end up on the PUP to start the season. So this really limits his upside in what we can expect from him in Dynasty and in 2020. But I will say it may limit his season-long upside, but we all know where it really matters is in the fantasy playoffs. And say Rashad Penny comes off the PUP, we continue to see Chris Carson deal with injuries, deal with fumbling concerns. At this point of the season, Carlos Hyde could be complete dust. We know how Carlos Hyde has had a significant workload throughout his entire career, and he is older and was inefficient in Houston. So maybe there is upside just for your fantasy playoffs in 2020 with Rashad Penny taking over this job. Obviously, it is not likely, but it is in the range of outcomes. And if you are a strong contender, I think it would be worth it to go out there and get a Rashad Penny if you are almost guaranteed a playoff berth. Now, let's go to a running back that I did not necessarily draft that much his rookie season, but after his rookie season, when most people were disappointed about him, I was going out there and buying him at what I perceived to be a discount, and this is Sony Michel. Sony Michel was the 31st overall pick at the NFL draft, and he is currently now 25 years old. So he's going to be pretty much the oldest running back we talk about with all these guys. And of course, we all know he comes from Georgia, and he was just an okay athlete at the NFL Combine. This should have been the first red flag for me. Another red flag is that he's a little undersized. He's 5'11", 214 pounds. This puts him in the 44th percentile in terms of BMI. This is not necessarily something that you want to see from a running back, especially when they are not extremely athletic. But in 2018, the expectations were sky high for Sony Michel, and Sony Michel was perceived to be a pass-catching running back. He was drawing a lot of comparisons to an Alvin Kamara. Yet we see him be the exact opposite running back after his rookie season, where he averages 16.1 carries, less than 1 target, 71.6 rushing yards, and 3 receiving yards a game. So an extremely disappointing rookie season for what we believe to be a pass-catching running back. And going into 2019, a lot of people were down on Sony Michel, but I was looking at Sony Michel as a guy, hey, he has touchdown upside. He was supposed to be this great pass catcher coming out of Georgia. What happened? I mean, I believe that in 2019, he can take over this job, possibly be a 3-down running back. It doesn't matter if he's not efficient. We could see him get the workload. But we see Sony Michel continue his career trajectory as just a first and second down grinder running back and averaged 15.4 carries, 1.2 targets, 57 rushing yards. But good news, he doubled his receiving yards from 3 to 6. Yeah, I know it's a tough scene. I went in. I'm sorry that if you bought Sony Michel based on my opinion, based on my advice going into this last season, that's definitely on me, and you took a massive value loss like I did on many dynasty teams. But in 2020, I believe that his current price could be worth it in a specific league. So we see no Tom Brady. We see a possible tank job going on in New England. I know a lot of people don't want to admit it, but I'm convinced every team with a marginal quarterback that's such as a Gardner Minshew or such as a Stidham, if they're not going out there and signing Cam Newton, if they passed on a Jameis Winston, if they passed on an Andy Dalton, really, I am kind of concerned that they are possibly tanking. And obviously, this would be bad news for a first and second down running back. But one other thing we have to be worried about, and probably the most worrisome thing for this Sony Michel profile, is they spent a 3rd-round pick on Damian Harris last offseason, who never showed anything his rookie season, but he was supposed to be a well-rounded 3-down running back coming out of Alabama. But if you play in a points per carry league, I know this may only apply to about 20% of the audience. I play in a couple. Sony Michel is still extremely valuable there and will most likely be undervalued just because, say you play in a 0.25 points per carry league, if Sony Michel this season averages 16 carries a game, you're getting 4 points additional every single week. So that's an additional 40 rushing yards, and that's going to add up throughout the entire season. So now let's get to a player who I just drafted my first share of within all my dynasty leagues at the 302, I believe, and this is Nick Chubb. So y'all know Nick Chubb. Earlier on this offseason, I was banging the drum saying, hey guys, what is going on here? Nick Chubb is extremely overvalued. I have a video out there from about probably 3 months ago calling Nick Chubb the most overrated running back in the entire dynasty landscape, but this is when he was going at the very end of the first round of dynasty startups. I recently just picked him up at the very beginning of the 3rd round of a Superflex dynasty startup, and I think that's accurately where Nick Chubb should be going because Nick Chubb is currently 24 years old. He does have a fantastic profile coming out of Georgia with Sony Michel. Nick Chubb was selected at the 2.03 by the Cleveland Browns. He was 5'11", 227 pounds, so we see an 81st percentile BMI score, so this is extremely similar to a Saquon Barkley, and what's also extremely similar to a Saquon Barkley are the athletic measurables. He actually had a 98th percentile SPARQ score, so we see that Nick Chubb is an elite athlete. But in 2018, we see Nick Chubb splitting carries with Carlos Hyde. He doesn't really get to come on until the end of the season. Then he started winning people their dynasty leagues. He averaged 12 carries, a little under 2 targets, 62 rushing yards, 9 receiving yards. But it was funny because in 2019, he had almost an essentially opposite season compared to his rookie season. Yes, his overall numbers were way up. He had 18 carries, 3.1 targets, 93 rushing yards, and a little under 20 receiving yards. But at the same time, he started off being one of the hottest running backs in the NFL. Then Kareem Hunt came back. And if you don't remember, at one point, Kareem Hunt was a first-round dynasty startup pick. I don't know if you played dynasty then, but it happened. To many people, Kareem Hunt was one of the best running backs at the NFL level, and Kareem Hunt proved to be extremely effective down the stretch in Cleveland, playing not only a third down role for this team, but also going over and playing in the slot some. So down the stretch, Nick Chubb really tailed off and was almost just a low-end running back 2 compared to how he was a high-end running back 1 at the beginning of the year. So in 2020, I expect Nick Chubb to be a running back 2 unless something happens to Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is currently limiting Nick Chubb's upside, but if something happens to Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb becomes a top-end elite running back that's going to be able to win you your fantasy league, especially if you're able to get him in the third round of your dynasty startup draft. He's not going to go there in every draft, but his price is definitely tanking because people are getting smarter. I'm not going to say people are realizing it because I made a video on it. I'm not that arrogant to say, but I think I made the video. Then randomly, a bunch of other people decided to start talking about it on podcasts. Obviously, they didn't do it because of the video, but just the timing of the things. And now people are finally starting to hear, hey, maybe Nick Chubb isn't as locked in as we thought. Maybe Nick Chubb is actually a committee running back with Kareem Hunt in Cleveland. So in 2020, I believe the upside is limited unless we see a Kareem Hunt injury. Now, let's go to a running back that I have a weird relationship with, and this is Ronald Jones. Now, if you don't remember, Ronald Jones was extremely polarizing coming into the NFL draft. There were these film guys who absolutely loved Ronald Jones. There were a bunch of tweets out there from film guys saying that Ronald Jones was the best running back in the class, better than Saquon Barkley. And then there were a bunch of analytics metric guys that were saying Ronald Jones is a horrible running back and not in the top 10 of this draft class. But let's look at his overall profile. And he came into the NFL at an extremely young age, which we actually like to see. He's the youngest running back in this draft class. He's only 22 years old currently. He was selected with the 6th pick in the second round. He's 5'11", 205 pounds, so he has an 18th percentile BMI, and this is the most concerning thing in terms of Ronald Jones for me. It shows that really he's not going to be able to profile to be a workhorse running back throughout the entire stretch of the season. But the best thing about this Ronald Jones profile is he was a track star at USC. If you look up his 40 time, you're not going to really find anything accurate just because he ran the 40, and halfway through running the 40, he actually pulled his hamstring. So if you look at his athletic measurables, they are inaccurate, but we do know that Ronald Jones was a track star at USC. Now in 2018, Ronald Jones had possibly the worst rookie career out of any of these running backs. He had 3.8 carries, 1.5 targets, 7.3 rushing yards, and 5.5 receiving yards a game. But, of course, after probably having one of the worst rookie running back seasons in history, the most Mason thing ever that I could imagine, I went out here and I told y'all, hey, go buy Ronald Jones in every single league. Ronald Jones is currently being traded for a mid-third round pick. He was just an early third round pick. And I actually went from not drafting Ronald Jones a single time before his rookie season when his price was sky high to going out there and buying him up for late third round picks all offseason last year. Because if you remember, the story of Tampa Bay all offseason before the NFL draft was Ronald Jones is going to get replaced. There's no chance Ronald Jones is the starting running back. And I was looking at his profile and saying, yeah, I mean, he was horrible in 2018. He's most likely a horrible running back. But if I can go out there and pay a third round pick for him, I think it's a solid investment, and I'm going to be getting a better profile than anyone else I would get at that pick. And in 2019, he actually paid dividends compared to what you had to pay. He averaged almost 11 carries, almost 3 targets, 45 rushing yards, and 20 receiving yards a game. Now, obviously, these are not fantastic numbers, but if you went out there, bought him for a late third before this year's NFL draft, you could have actually gone out there and sold him for mid-second with this free production in 2019. Obviously, in 2020, we see Tom Brady coming in. There are reports that Tom Brady doesn't trust Ronald Jones. They went out and spent a third-round pick on Keyshawn Vaughn. And Ronald Jones sees his price plummet back down to a late 3rd round pick. And I'm out here saying, guys, if you can go out there and trade a early 3rd round pick for Ronald Jones, which I know some people say you can't do, but I'm looking at where he's going in these dynasty startup drafts that we're hosting with the Flock Leagues. Guys, I'm confident that if you go out there and you trade for Ronald Jones, maybe you don't necessarily give up a straight up early 3rd round pick, but if you structure a deal where he's just valued as that or valued as a throw-in, I promise you, Ronald Jones is extremely obtainable for a fair price. And Keyshawn Vaughn, I'm kind of off the bandwagon and not expecting him to be as good as everyone is saying. Go out there, buy Ronald Jones. Now, another player that got replaced at the NFL draft was Kareem Johnson. Kareem Johnson was extremely young, like Ronald Jones. He's only 22 years old. He was selected with the 11th pick in the 2nd round. He's also like Ronald Jones in that he has a concerning BMI. He's 6 foot, 213 pounds, has a 23rd percentile BMI, and was a 30th percentile Spark athlete. So Kareem Johnson has been a guy that I was never really a believer in. I was never a complete hater on him, but I was definitely lukewarm and wasn't willing to go out there and pay the price for Kareem Johnson, especially considering he's had injury concerns dating all the way back to high school. But in 2018, his rookie season, we see him average 12 carries, 4 targets, 64 rushing yards, and 21 receiving yards a game. The most impressive thing about this was his targets. I was not expecting Kareem Johnson to be such a successful receiving running back, but we see him come back to earth in 2019, where he averages 14 carries, 2 targets, 50 rushing yards, and 16 receiving yards. So we see that he actually sees his carries go up, his rushing yards go down. So this is something you never want to see, a major drop in efficiency. And also we see him get utilized a lot less in the receiving game. But in 2020, we see this team bring in DeAndre Swift. They should have an upgraded offense, but Kareem Johnson has suffered from constant injuries throughout his entire career. And if you could go out there and pay, just say, a early 3rd round pick similar to a Ronald Jones, I believe it could be worth it, just strictly based on, think about what it would cost you to go out there and buy Alexander Mattison, Dalvin Cook's backup. I think you would have to go out there and pay a late 2nd round pick. A lot of people are excited about having that top end backup, but people aren't really looking at Kareem Johnson as the same thing, whereas he's similar to an Alexander Mattison in terms of he has a backup role, but at the same time, we've actually seen Kareem Johnson be efficient with the football. We've seen him be a good football player, and he's playing in an offense that may just utilize him at the beginning of 2020, whereas you will get that free production that you would not get with another backup running back. Now, let's go to a running back that has a very similar situation to Kareem Johnson, in that he's been injured all throughout his entire NFL career and dating back to college, and this is Derrius Guice. Derrius Guice was also one of these running backs that was extremely young coming into the NFL. He's now only 23 years old. He was selected with the 27th pick in the 2nd round, and he really fell compared to where a lot of people had him going in mock drafts. A lot of people thought he was going to be going in the 1st round, but we see him fall this far, and people thought that it was due to character concerns. Personally, I think it was most likely due to the medicals. I mean, we don't really get a good grasp of what these teams see at the NFL Combine, and I think maybe they looked at his knees and said, hey, this is not a guy we can invest a 1st round pick into, so he falls to the 27th pick in the 2nd round for the Washington Redskins. But we do see him have great size, and we do see him have great speed. He was 5'11", 224 pounds. This puts him in the 73rd percentile for BMI, and this puts him in the 91st percentile in terms of size-adjusted athleticism with the 40-yard dash that he ran. But if we look at his first 2 NFL seasons, in 2018, he had no season. He actually got injured in the preseason, and in 2019, he was extremely efficient with the touches he received before he got injured, but he also received no targets, and he was only utilized in the running game. Now we see in 2020, they bring in Antonio Gibson, but they do have a new play caller. And honestly, having the new play caller is kind of concerning for me with Derrius Guice, just because he has no allegiance to Derrius Guice, yet he does have some investment tied up into Antonio Gibson and also his new running back that was signed, Peyton Barber. So I think that Derrius Guice may be a sell. Y'all know I made a video about him a couple days ago, yet I believe that Antonio Gibson has the potential to win you your league. Now, guys, that's all I got for y'all. I know there are other running backs selected in this draft class, but this video is already so long, and if you have not already, please make sure you like it. A ton went into this video, and I really hope y'all got something useful from it, and have a great day, guys.
be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.